One of the hardest parts about doing one of these shows right now is there's so many crazy things going on. It's hard to decide what to make the next episode about. I mean, my gosh, just look around. When you got to take one particular feature of society and focus on it for a little bit, something else is happening before you're done. I mean, that's just the way it is. Everything's moving so fast. So here we go. Welcome back to another episode of What They Don't Say. I'm your host, Fred Lynn. Now, I promised from the start that we're not going to be one of these groupies that just repeats all the news stories everyone else is saying and then tells you what to think about it. This is called What They Don't Say for a reason. There's so many things that happen right out in the open that never get discussed because media never takes people there. I think people are smarter than that. I don't think everyone is a herd sheep. But the people who aren't herd sheep don't really have anyone talking to them. Everything you hear on this channel is going to be verifiable either by events, history, or our Constitution. That's it. There's enough going on in this world. We don't need any more games. The world's always been a crazy place, but geez, we've never had all these crazy people like we got. Back during the 60s when we had all those riots, it was the blacks about civil rights, but it was the college kids because, let's face it, the main reason they protested Vietnam was because they didn't want the draft. They were afraid they were going to get snatched up. But now we got crazy people that are old ladies. We got school teachers out there doing crazy stuff in the street. We got a crazy nurse that quit his job and went out and got himself shot in a protest. That didn't used to happen. It used to be the kids and the kooks, and once in a while when they could stir it up, it was racial stuff. Now we got crazy people everywhere, and you don't know who your friend is in society. You don't know if your neighbor is your friend. The American author Sue Hinton came up with a line that's famous. It's been bastardized a little bit and reused a lot over the years, but it was her that did it. And that is, a person that has two friends in life is lucky. A person that has one true friend is twice as lucky. Real friends are hard to get, harder to keep. A lot of times people are just acquaintances, but what happens between countries? Does a country need friends? Does it need friends, or does it just need to be communicating with countries that have the same dangers or mutual needs? Do we really even have friends for America anymore? Who would our friends be? It seems to me like since World War II at least, the standard for deciding who is our friend is how much money they take from us. It's like, well, hey, they took our money. They've got to be friends of ours. I mean, they took everything we gave them. Look at them. They even came back for more. They must be friends. See how nice they are? Well, that's a bunch of crap. And unfortunately, that has been the standard. Calling these people friendly nations when they don't do anything friendly. Even Europe, when they started that EU and they got the euro dollar, the only reason they did that was because they wanted to overtake the US dollar as the standard of currency and trade throughout the world. They were jealous. Europe has always been that way. The greatest powers in Europe, who are we looking at? We're looking at, Britain, Germany, France. We've had wars with all of them. At one time or another, they were the worst thing in our lives. All three of those. All three of them have been the worst thing in each other's lives. Are they friends now? Or are they all just in this EU because they all have a mutual need? Can they trust each other? No. They can't trust each other at all. Look, Japan is now considered a good friend of ours, a reliable friend, one of our best friends. We got people who are alive today that saw Japan bomb Pearl Harbor in that sneak attack. It changes. There's no such thing as a permanent friend in the world. Who do we have now? Why would we need friends? When we get into World War III, it's not a question of if. It's going to happen. That's what mankind always does. From the beginning, we've had the wars. We're going to have World War III. So who is going to be our friends? Who will be our allies? Friends and allies might not be the same thing. You got to remember, in World War II, we allied with Russia. At the end of the war, Patton wanted to go back, arm the German prisoners, and kick Russia back into Siberia because he always considered them dangerous. But we won the Second World War because of our allies. We were the deciding factor, but we couldn't have done it alone. You need friends to work with, so you got airspace you can fly over, So you can set up your bases, so you have base operations. You got to have friends. Friends are allies. Okay, it's really hard to decide which is which. Who can we trust today? Europe treated us very bad on trade. Trump has said that. Trump made it obvious. Were they our friends? We considered them friends all along. Look at the tourism industry, and the French wines, the French cheeses, the Italian sauces, the Italian prosciutto, all these imports, Italian fashions. All of this stuff is flooded into America. They locked us out of their markets. All this time. Of course they were friendly to us. They were sucking us dry. They weren't our friends. What kind of friend does that? There's an old saying. It came from India 400 years before Christ. People say it's an Arab saying. It was from India. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's what happened to us with Russia in World War II. We weren't particularly friends with them, but they were enemies with Germany. We were enemies with Germany. So Russia was our friend for the duration of the war. But now, if we look ahead to World War III, or just the problems we've got right now, we need people backing us now on some of this stuff that's going on. If they just stand up and support us. Recently, Trump just gutted the UN. The previous episode of this series was about that. It's right there in the link. It'll show up at the end of this video. Trump gutted the UN. France, Norway, and Sweden came out against Trump's move to limit the UN. Why? Because they're not friends of ours. They're globalists first. Do we need friends? Yes, we've got to have places that we can work with. But these nations are not going to be any good to us in World War III, very little good, because of the fact that they're going to have their armies busy at home. They have problems with friends within their own countries. Right here in America, we have that. The rural people in America don't think anything like the people in Seattle, the people in Oregon, the people in California in general. We have people within our own states and neighborhoods that cannot ever be friends. There is nothing to reconcile. When Trump got done with that Gaza mess, when he finally got this truce called, he said that he had done it. He established what was probably going to be permanent peace in the Middle East. Well, we all know that Trump gets ahead of himself when he's talking. I mean, let's just be honest. We all know he does that. It is absurd to say there's ever going to be permanent peace in the Middle East. None of those people are friends to each other. They've all been at wars with each other. Where are the friends in this world? Where are the nations that are friendly nations in this world? It used to be if you did a lot of trade with someone, they were a friend, and they would defend each other because they needed what the other one had. That's why they were trading with them. It was a partnership. Life was better, or survival was possible because you had these friends to trade with. Okay, here we are. We consider China an enemy on every level. Militarily, they're a danger. Their ideology is dangerous. They are an enemy. They've done a lot of bad things around the world, and they see us as their obstacle to being the number one world power. They want us out of the way. They're an enemy, but they're our greatest trade partner. Are we crazy? I mean, how do you reconcile all this? Where is the common sense in any of this? They're not our friend. They're our biggest trade partner. That used to never happen in this world. Everybody in the world is putting stuff ahead of common sense. Stuff. We want cheap toys. We want Walmart to be stocked. It's not just China. It's all these other countries too. India has always been considered a friend of ours. They aren't friendly. They're setting up trade deals with Russia and China, and we're not even in the room. I mean, we don't even get to hear about it. We don't know what all the details are until they tell us. We might be the most powerful country in the world, but we're not running the world, not by a long shot, because we've got a lot of friends meeting in the back rooms. Friends. We call them friends. And they're meeting in the back rooms trying to decide what the hell to do about us. Look at Canada. Canada could not exist without America down here protecting them. And they really robbed us in the markets. They had a couple 100% tariffs on a lot of items. And they got mad when Trump decided to do something, maybe put some tariffs back on them. So they were all removed. We don't have the right to have tariffs removed when we're not charging a tariff? Boy, this is crazy. These people are not our friends. They are acquaintances on the global stage. They might be allies when we get to a point of war, but how much good are they going to be? How much good is Europe going to be in World War III when half of their army has to be at home just to quell the violence on their streets? Sweden right now is 1/3 radical Muslim, and they've got the crime wave to prove it. Women can't walk the streets in most cities in Sweden right now because of the Muslim immigrant population. They don't know how to conduct themselves as decent human beings in public. Women are groped. They're not safe. France has got the same problem. 15, 20 years ago, France had neighborhoods that were already been so infiltrated that French cops weren't safe going there. They've got Sharia law in neighborhoods. They don't talk about it. But everyone that travels to these places just for the old time vacations like they used to have to see all the great sights and the wonders and experience the culture of Europe, that culture isn't there anymore. It survives in pockets. It's just like America. We're out in the countryside. You've still got examples of the best of what it could be. America is still that way. The area that I live in, it's rural. It's close to some population centers, close enough, hour and a half. But it's rural. We've got everything we need out here. We've got all the stores. We've got everything. And the people act like Americans used to act. They're decent in public. But how many places can you go where people don't even know how to be decent anymore? Who are our friends in the world? Like I said, Japan bombed us. Here we are. We're friends. They're one of our most reliable friends, and they've been stepping up when it matters. Do we need friends? I don't think we do. I think we need allies who need us as bad as we need them. Because if they don't need you, they will shaft you. And even if they do need you, Europe has proven they will still shaft us. England is supposed to be a friend. We had a couple of wars with them. Gradually, we became friends. However, they are set to become the first European Muslim country with nuclear bombs. They're on their way now, and they're gunning for it. Starmer, that runs the place now, he's pushing it. He's advancing Islam at every political opportunity. This is happening all over Europe. Look at the trouble we had with Europe over Greenland. We really needed them. They need them. They need America putting up the Golden Dome and protecting the Northern Hemisphere. Europe needs that. And they rush out to condemn us, to pretend that they're putting military over there. They send 34 soldiers as a show of force against America. Oh, well. Hell, the French armies could have surrendered without ever leaving home. Anyway, the point is, they stood against us very publicly the first chance they got. We can't trust them. Never, ever trust them. I think that's what really being a friend is all about. If it's someone you can actually trust. Norway, Sweden, and France standing against us, that calls their friendship into question. You see the point? They do things that show that they can't be trusted. We can't trust anybody for sure. Nobody out there has been as good to us as we have been to all of them. We have spent billions and trillions helping other countries. And what do we get back in return? We get backstabbed. We got people coming in here and robbing us because of our good intentions and because of political shenanigans by Obama that brought in all those Somalis in the first place. So what constitutes a friend when you're talking about friendly nations? We're not seeing it. Whatever the standard is, we are not seeing it. As we move ahead with these international relations, it's constantly going on. We can't ever make any more permanent treaties with these people like we've done in the past. There's no such thing as permanent in international relations. All treaties we make with what we call friendly countries should expire in 20 years and they should be revisited. You can re-extend the treaties if you believe it's still valid. But when you make a treaty with someone and it's open-ended, they can turn around and shaft you. And we've got that going on in a lot of places. Look again at what Europe has done to us. Look what's going on in Ukraine. They had that treaty where we were going to defend them regardless of whatever. We got ourselves in a mess. How can you leave something like that open-ended? You can't. Every treaty has to have a limit because we don't know who's going to be our friend or how long. We don't know if they're ever going to be reliable. They don't have to be our friend as long as they are an ally, but we can't even trust them for that right now. Like I said, in the war, they're going to be busy at home, but we got to think about this. We got to realize it is a tough world out there, just like it is right here. In this day and age, you can't trust the person next door. You sure as hell can't trust the person across the ocean. We got to give it a lot of serious thought and realize that all these people are not our friends just because they take our money, just because they smile at us, just because they send products over here and trade. That doesn't make them our friend. Look at China. We got to get this right, my friends. And if we do, maybe God will continue to bless this great country of ours. Thanks for listening.